After my accident, I pretended to be in a coma and heard my mother say, maybe it's better if she dies, she's always been a disappointment. I feigned to be comatose in the hospital to find out what my family actually thought of me. It began 4 days following my motorcycle accident. The doctor told me that I was lucky to be alive. Cracked ribs, concussion, and shattered leg, but I was recovering faster than expected. By day 4, I was completely awake, but something forced me to close my eyes as I heard footsteps approaching. My older brother, Leon, was the first to enter. "Still out cold," he said to someone behind him. "Good," my mother responded. "Maybe this will finally teach her a lesson." My heart has stopped. What's the lesson? "I mean, riding that death trap at 26, Mom said. She has always been reckless. Remember when she left law school to become a paramedic?" Leon responded. Which, to be honest, was probably wise. In any case, she lacked the intellectual capacity for law. I lay totally still, as my family discussed my life choices as if I were already dead. "The worst part is the money," Mom lamented. "How much does this hospital stay cost? And she has the basic insurance from her ambulance job. We could always just—" Leon lowered his voice. "Don't even say it," Mom snapped. "I am just saying. If she does not wake up, the life insurance will terminate." Mom's voice was sharp. "Someone might hear you." My blood turned icy. They were discussing my life insurance while I lay there. "Look, all I'm saying is that maybe this is a sign," Leon explained. "She never fit in with this family. Always playing the hero. With her blue-collar work, she constantly makes us seem bad. Do you remember when she brought that homeless man to Christmas dinner?" Mom inquired, her voice filled with contempt. "Or when she testified against Uncle Victor at his trial," Leon recalled. "Uncle Victor, the family secret we were not supposed to discuss. The reason I cut off communication with most of my relatives 3 years ago. She destroyed this family," Mom stated gently. "Victor's in prison because of her lies." Lies. They accused me of lying about what he had done to me. The room went silent. I heard the rustle of garments, like if someone was drawing closer to my bed. "Do you know what I think?" Leon whispered. "I think we need to have a serious conversation with her doctor about her prognosis." "What type of conversation?" Mom's voice was hardly audible. "The kind where we talk about quality of life. Brain injuries can be unpredictable. Sometimes it is more humane to let someone go." Leon. "Think about it, Mother. She'll never change. She'll wake up and resume embarrassing us. Back to her miserable career, her bleeding heart causes, and her bitter war against our family." "She cost us everything," Mom exclaimed, her voice rising stronger. "Country club membership and charity board posts. Do you realize how awful it was when the Weatherbys asked me to step down? Because of her lies about Victor," Leon concurred. "One troubled girl's fantasy destroyed a good man's reputation." Fantasy. They saw 14 years of torment as a fairy tale. "If she doesn't wake up," Leon explained slowly, "the insurance money will solve a lot of problems. We could pay off the house. Maybe go on that European trip you've been craving." "How much is this policy worth?" Mom asked. $250,000. In addition, the motorbike firm may offer a settlement. Remember those faulty brakes?" My stomach churned. The brakes were not defective. I had hit black ice. "We'd have to be careful," Mom added. "Make sure everything looks natural." Of course. A grieving family makes the difficult decision to let their daughter go gently. "When should we speak with the doctor?" "Soon, before she demonstrates additional signs of improvement." I heard footsteps approaching my bed again. "Look at her," Leon stated, his voice cold. "At 26 years old, this is what she has to show for it. No husband, no real career, and no money. She is a disappointment." "I had such high hopes for her," Mom lamented. "Law school, appropriate marriage, and grandchildren. Instead, she decided to toss it all away. For what? To help strangers who probably won't appreciate it." "She was always selfish," Mom acknowledged. "Even as a child, always causing drama, always seeking attention." Attention. That was what they dubbed my cry for aid when Uncle Victor was torturing me. The funeral would actually help our image, Leon reflected. A tragic young woman was taken far too soon. People adore a martyred hero story. "We could set up a scholarship," Mom suggested, warming to the idea. "Show how much we supported her career choice." "Perfect. Transform her into a symbol while finally free of the real thing. Their footsteps approached the door. I should go talk to that doctor, Mom suggested. What is his name? Dr. Laurent. A good idea. And I'll call the insurance company to understand the procedure. Remember, if anyone asks, we were here praying for her recovery, Leon said. I know. The door clicked closed. I lay in the dark, contemplating what I'd just heard. My family wasn't simply disappointed in me, they hoped I'd die and planned to profit from it. I forced myself to breathe normally to keep my heart rate stable. The monitors beside me beeped repeatedly, marking time as I tried to figure out what kind of individuals I was linked to. That night, I went over every conversation from my youth, every family event, and every occasion I thought demonstrated love. How many of those grins were fake? How many displays of pride had been staged for outsiders? I recalled the night I finally told my parents about Uncle Victor. I was 23 and had returned home from college for Christmas break. I had been in therapy for 5 years, working on my confidence to speak up. When I finally informed them what he had done to me from the age of 8 to 19, their initial worry was not for me, but for the family's reputation. Are you certain you remember this correctly? Mom had requested. You were quite young. Children sometimes misinterpret adult affection, Dad explained. They'd spent the entire talk convincing me that I was mistaken, that Uncle Victor was a good man who had only been kind to me. When I insisted and showed them the notebook I'd kept to detail every incident, they accused me of having an overactive imagination. You always were dramatic, your mother observed, making up stories to get attention. But I had not made anything up. 3 years later, when Uncle Victor was caught abusing my cousin Sophia, they could no longer deny it. The physical evidence was undeniable. The medical reports were conclusive. Despite this, I remained the villain in their story. The following morning, additional people arrived. My cousin Clara arrived with her husband Matteo, both dressed in costly attire that exuded success and superiority. Any changes? Clara inquired, slipping onto the chair beside my bed as if she were attending a social gathering. None, Mom said, her voice heavy with feigned anguish. The doctors say it could go either way. Such a tragedy, Matteo murmured, his tone implying he was talking about the weather. She was so young. Has anyone visited her apartment? Clara inquired, and I could hear the calculating in her voice. I mean, somebody should check on her belongings. Make sure nothing is stolen. My one-bedroom flat, which I'd worked 3 jobs to finance, was furnished with old furniture and artwork by local artists I knew. It wasn't a lot, but it was mine. Leon has her keys, Mom explained. He's handling all that. Good thinking, Matteo remarked. Does she have any valuables? Electronics, jewelry, savings accounts? The audacity was amazing. They were documenting my belongings while I lay purportedly comatose 4 feet away. Not much, Leon added to the conversation as he entered the room. Her bike was the most expensive thing she owned, and that's totaled. What about her savings? Clara said. Investment accounts, retirement funds. She spent everything on that ridiculous motorcycle, Mom stated in disgust, and giving money away to every sob story that crossed her path. They were discussing my gifts to the women's shelter, the homeless veteran I'd assisted in getting back on his feet, and the immigrant family whose medical costs I had paid after their son was hit by a drunk driver. Remember when she paid for that stranger's cancer treatment? Clara chuckled coldly. Thousands of dollars to someone she'd met exactly once. Or when she gave her entire Christmas bonus to that animal rescue, Leon remarked, shaking his head as if my generosity were a mental disorder. At least she had good life insurance, Matteo added, refocusing the subject on finances. That shows some planning ahead. The EMT union required it, Leon told me, though I doubt she understood what it meant for her beneficiaries. Who are the beneficiaries? Clara inquired, attempting to be casual but failing terribly. Mom and I are listed as co-beneficiaries, Leon told me. She set it up when she started the job, back when she still considered us family. Before I'd testified against Uncle Victor, before I'd learned that truth was less important to them than reputation. That's fortunate, Matteo remarked, his words striking me like a physical blow. At least something good can come from this tragedy. Fortunate. My probable death was fortuitous for them. They stayed for another hour, their talk alternating between phony concern for my health and genuine interest in my financial circumstances. They talked about burial arrangements, memorial services, and how to convey my life narrative in the best light possible for them. No one said that they missed me. Nobody shared a fond memory. Nobody expressed hope for my recovery. They talked about me as if I were already dead, as if I were a problem that had finally been solved. When they eventually departed, I heard Mom mutter to Leon in the corridor. "Have you talked to Dr. Laurent yet?" "This afternoon," he responded. "I'm going to ask about her realistic prognosis and our options." "Our options. These are not my alternatives. Theirs." That afternoon, Dr. Laurent and Leon entered, and I could feel the tension between them. I liked Dr. Laurent during my conscious interactions. He seemed sincere, skilled and kind. I prayed he wouldn't be swayed by whatever trick Leon had planned. "Doctor, I need to ask some difficult questions," Leon said, his voice laden with faux passion, making my skin crawl. "Of course. What can I help you with?" "My sister's always been troubled. Mental health issues, risky behavior, poor decision-making. Is it possible that even if she wakes up, she might not be the same person?" I felt nauseous. Leon was building the framework to call into doubt my mental capacity, creating a story that would justify whatever they were preparing. "Brain injuries can certainly affect personality and cognitive function," Dr. Laurent explained cautiously. "But your sister's scans look very promising. I expect a full recovery. But you can't be certain. Medicine isn't about certainties, Mr. Thornfield. It's about probabilities, and the probability is that your sister will make a complete recovery." "What if we're not comfortable with those odds?" Leon inquired, and his casual tone made my blood run cold. There was a prolonged pause. I could practically hear Dr. Laurent considering the implications of the issue. "I'm not sure I understand what you're asking," he responded hesitantly. "I'm asking about our options as her family. If we feel that the quality of life she might have isn't acceptable." Another pause. "This one seems risky. Mr. Thornfield, are you asking about withdrawing life support?" "I'm asking about all our options. Your sister isn't on life support. She's breathing on her own. Her vitals are stable, and her brain function is normal. There's nothing to withdraw. But if her condition deteriorated, there's no indication that it will. In fact, I expect her to regain consciousness within the next day or two." Leon's wrath was radiating around the room like heat. "Doctor, you don't understand. My sister has a history of making poor choices, reckless behavior. She caused significant trauma to our family with false accusations against a relative. If she wakes up, she might continue down that destructive path. False charges. 14 years of recorded abuse were based on fraudulent charges. Mr. Thornfield, my job is to treat medical conditions, not to make judgments about patients' life choices. Your sister is recovering well from her injuries. That's all that matters to me. Even if she's a danger to herself and others? Has she been declared mentally incompetent by a court? No. Then she has the same rights as any adult patient. I'm going to check on her now. I'll ask you to step outside." Leon's footsteps receded gradually, and I could hear his rage in the heavy way his shoes struck the floor. Dr. Laurent approached my bed, and I felt safer with him around. "Your vitals are excellent," he stated, taking notes on his chart. "Heart rate, blood pressure, brain activity, everything looks normal for someone in your condition." He leaned down and lowered his voice to just over a whisper. "I know you can hear me. Your brother's questions were inappropriate, and I want you to know that no one will make medical decisions for you without your consent. When you're ready to wake up, just open your eyes." My pulse rate increased on the monitor, betraying my consciousness. "That's what I thought," he replied quietly. "Take your time. I'll be here when you're ready." He went, and I laid there, absorbing what had just happened. Dr. Laurent knew I was awake. He was protecting me. But, for how long? What would Leon do if he realized his plan wasn't working? That evening brought a slew of family members I hadn't seen since Uncle Victor's trial. They'd all stopped communicating with me after the conviction, preferring to side with an abuser rather than admitting they'd failed to safeguard the child. My Aunt Dolores arrived first, clutching her fancy purse like a weapon and displaying a dramatic attitude of anguish. "Such a tragedy," she moaned deeply, taking the chair closest to my bed. "She had so much potential. Wasted potential," Uncle Paul said as he joined her. "But maybe this is God's way of giving her peace." "Peace from what?" Mom inquired, though I believed she already had the answer. "From her demons, from the lies she told, from the guilt of destroying our family." They assumed I felt guilty. They felt I was tormented for telling the truth about Uncle Victor. "Victor always said she'd been troubled since childhood," Dolores said, her voice growing stronger as she got into her story. "Making up stories, seeking attention. He tried to help her, you know. Spent so much time with her, trying to be a positive influence. Positive influence. That's what they called grooming. The trial nearly killed him, Paul said, his voice heavy with fake sadness. An innocent man destroyed by a disturbed girl's fantasies. He's doing better now though, Dolores replied, smiling slightly. Prison has given him time to reflect, to forgive her for what she did to him. Forgive me for what he has done to me. He writes to us sometimes, Paul remarked. Never bitter, never angry, just sad that she couldn't accept his love and guidance. His love. 14 years of abuse were love for them. Maybe if she doesn't wake up it's for the best, Paul reflected, his voice turning contemplative. She can't cause any more damage, and Victor could finally have peace, Dolores told her. Poor man has suffered enough. They stayed for 3 hours, taking turns delivering their revisionist account of my connection with Uncle Victor. In their interpretation, he was a misunderstood saint who attempted to assist a troubled child. I was a vengeful liar who ruined an innocent man out of vengeance. The most unsettling aspect was how certain they seemed of their own story. It was not a planned deceit. They'd literally altered history in their imaginations to avoid confronting their own inability to protect me. When they finally departed, I heard Paul say to Leon in the hallway, "If you need character witnesses about her mental state, we're happy to help." Character witnesses. They were preparing a case against my competence. The next day my father arrived. I hadn't seen him since the trial, when he sat in the back row, arms crossed, stone-faced, during my evidence. When the guilty verdict was given, he walked away without acknowledging me. He now sat by my bed. For a brief moment, I hoped he was different from the rest. Perhaps time had given him perspective. Perhaps he recognized what Uncle Victor had actually done to me. "I don't know if you can hear me," he murmured gently, his voice gruff and full of genuine passion. "But I need to say something." My cardiac monitor beeped somewhat faster, detracting my attention. "Your mother thinks I should let you go. Leon thinks it would be mercy, maybe they're right." My hope vanished in my chest, like a snuffed candle. "You broke this family apart," he said, his voice growing stronger. "My brother is in prison because of you. My wife can't show her face at church. My son has to explain to his colleagues why his sister destroyed our reputation. But I know why you did it. You were always jealous of Victor. He was successful, respected, accomplished, everything you weren't. So you decided to bring him down. Jealous of my abuser. I apparently envied the man who stole my childhood. The worst part is that people believed you. A court believed you. But I know my brother. He's a good man who made one mistake. A error, not mistakes. Not a decade-long pattern of abuse. One mistake. He trusted you," Dad added. "Tried to be a father figure when you needed guidance. And you repaid his kindness by destroying his life." Father figure. The irony was overwhelming. If you wake up, nothing changes. You'll still be the same vindictive, attention-seeking girl who destroyed our family for your 6 minutes of fame in court. 6 minutes of fame. 4 days of testimony regarding 14 years of abuse was fame-seeking for him. "Maybe it's better if you don't wake up," he remarked, getting up to depart. "Maybe everyone would be happier." He halted at the door before returning to my bedside. "I've already signed the papers Leon prepared. If your condition deteriorates, we won't keep you alive artificially. It's what's best for everyone." Papers. They created legal documents that would assure my death. "I should hate you for what you did to Victor," he added, his voice lowering to a whisper. "But you're still my daughter, so I'll just hope you find peace." After he departed, I laid there, trying to process the gravity of their treachery. My father, who was supposed to protect me, had chosen my abuser over me. He not only refused to believe what Uncle Victor had done, but he was actively supporting my murder. The understanding struck me like a physical punch. I was totally alone. Every person who was meant to love me unconditionally had expectations, and I had failed to meet them by refusing to remain silent about my abuse. That night, a new voice entered my room. Female, professional, and confident, as if she had dealt with delicate issues before. "Mrs. Thornfield. I'm attorney Patricia Walsh. You called about your daughter's situation." A lawyer. They'd hired a lawyer to assist them kill me. "Yes," Mom said, slipping into the visitor's chair. "We need to understand our options regarding our daughter's care. I've reviewed the medical records you provided. Your daughter's condition is stable, correct? For now, but brain injuries are unpredictable. The doctors say there could be complications." It was a lie. Dr. Laurent had stated that I was recuperating well. And you mentioned concerns about her mental competency? She's made increasingly erratic decisions over the past few years, Mom continued, warming to her story. Dropped out of law school to take a low-paying job, alienated the entire family with false accusations against her uncle. False charges. She claimed he abused her as a child. The court believed her lies. And now an innocent man is in prison. I see. And you're concerned that if she recovers, she might continue making poor decisions? We're concerned she might be a danger to herself and others. She's always been impulsive, reckless. This motorcycle accident is just the latest example. Well, if she regains consciousness, you could petition for guardianship based on mental incompetency. With the right documentation, you could make her medical and financial decisions. What kind of documentation would we need? Psychiatric evaluations, testimony from family members about her erratic behavior, evidence of poor judgment. The more comprehensive the case, the better your chances. And if she doesn't regain consciousness? Then the medical power of attorney you've established would allow you to make end-of-life decisions on her behalf. Medical powers of attorney. They had given themselves the legal authority to kill me while I was asleep and couldn't challenge it. How quickly could we move forward? Leon asked, joining the topic as he entered the room. If she wakes up, we could file a petition within days. The court would order an evaluation, and if she's found incompetent, you'd be appointed as her guardians. And if she doesn't wake up? That's a decision for you and her doctors. Some families choose to maintain life support indefinitely. Others feel it's more humane to allow natural death. They spent an additional hour discussing legal options, financial consequences, and how to present their case for my incompetence. Attorney Walsh outlined how to chronicle my erratic behavior, which family members would be the greatest witnesses, and what type of psychiatric evaluation would back up their statements. When they finished, I realized the entire breadth of their plot. If I awoke, they would pronounce me incapable and take control of my entire existence. If I didn't wake up, they'd let me die and claim the insurance money. In any case, they resolved the issue I had raised. But they had made one critical error. They assumed I was helpless, that I had no say in my own fate. They were about to discover otherwise. The next morning, Dr. Laurent returned alone to conduct his rounds. I could tell he was nervous the moment he walked into the room. I know you're awake, he murmured gently, confirming that the door was closed. And I know what your family is planning. We need to talk. I slowly opened my eyes, blinking in the fluorescent light, which seemed too bright. How long have you known? I asked quietly, my voice scratchy from days of silence. Since yesterday. Your heart rate spikes every time they say something disturbing. Your brain scans show normal activity patterns. You're physically capable of consciousness. I strained to sit up, my body stiff and weak from days of lying still. They're trying to kill me, I muttered, the words sounding strange even as I spoke them. I know, and legally, they might be able to do it. They've filed paperwork establishing medical power of attorney. How is that possible? I never gave them that authority. They claimed you were incapacitated and had no advance directives. Without anyone to contest it, the court granted their emergency petition. But I'm conscious now. Yes, but they could argue that your brain injury has affected your judgment. With the right psychiatric evaluation and family testimony, they could have you declared incompetent. So, what are my options? Dr. Laurent pushed a chair up to my bed, his look grim. Limited, but not non-existent. Tell me about this uncle they mentioned. The one in prison. So I told him everything about Uncle Victor moving in with us when I was 7 years old, following his ugly divorce that left him momentarily homeless. About how my parents embraced him with open arms, thankful for the assistance with childcare while they worked long hours to advance their careers. About how his assistance quickly evolved into something more darker. It started with games, I muttered, the words catching in my throat like broken glass. Special games that were our secret. He said I was mature for my age, that I could handle grown-up activities other kids couldn't. Dr. Laurent listened without judgment and occasionally took notes. By the time I was 10, the games had escalated. He convinced me it was normal, that all uncles did this with their nieces. When I got uncomfortable, he'd remind me how much my parents depended on him, how devastated they'd be if I caused problems. Did you ever try to tell anyone? Once, when I was 12. I tried to tell my mom. She was getting ready for work, rushing around the kitchen, and I said that Uncle Victor made me uncomfortable. What did she say? She said I was being dramatic. That Uncle Victor was family. That he loved me and would never hurt me. She said I should be grateful to have such a caring uncle. Dr. Laurent shook his head with contempt. The abuse continued until I left for college at 18. Even then, he'd find ways to corner me during holiday visits. It wasn't until I was 23 and in therapy that I understood what had really happened to me. What made you finally report it? My cousin Sophia. She was 7, the same age I was when it started. I noticed him paying her the same kind of special attention. I couldn't let it happen to another child. So, you went to the police? First, I tried to warn my family. I thought if I explained what he'd done to me, they'd protect Sophia. But they accused me of being jealous, vindictive, attention-seeking. They said I was making up stories to hurt Uncle Victor because I'd always resented his success. That must have been devastating. It was. But I couldn't let Sophia suffer what I'd suffered. So I went to the police alone. And they believed you? Eventually. The detective was experienced with sexual abuse cases. She knew what to look for, what questions to ask. When they examined Sophia, they found evidence that confirmed my worst fears. He was already abusing her? Yes, for months. And there were others. Girls from his neighborhood, his ex-wife's daughter from her first marriage. The investigation uncovered a pattern going back 20 years. Dr. Laurent remained quiet for a long time, contemplating the information. Your family still doesn't believe you? They believe what's convenient. Admitting he's guilty would mean admitting they failed to protect me. It's easier to believe I'm lying. What do you want to do now? I want to disappear. I want them to think I died. That's complicated, and illegal. More illegal than conspiracy to commit murder. Point taken. But faking a death involves falsifying medical records, insurance fraud, potential federal charges. What if we don't fake it? What if we just let them make their choice? Dr. Laurent lifted his eyebrow. I don't follow. They want to withdraw life support, right? What if we give them the opportunity? What if I have a medical emergency that requires life support, and then they make the decision to let me die? You're not on life support. But I could be. Temporarily. A complication that requires intubation. Then, when they choose to let me die, we document everything. That's incredibly risky. Less risky than letting them actually kill me. Dr. Laurent looked over my chart, thinking carefully. There might be another way, he answered hesitantly. But it would require perfect timing, absolute trust, and significant risk for both of us. What kind of way? Medical records can be interpreted creatively. If you were to have a sudden decline, require emergency intervention, and then pass away despite our best efforts. Well, death certificates are filed based on medical judgment. You'd fake my death? I'd document a tragic outcome following complications from traumatic brain injury, which technically wouldn't be entirely false. You did have a brain injury. And then, you'd need a new identity, a new life, and the ability to stay hidden indefinitely. The concept appeared to be impossible, too intricate and risky. But the alternative was for my family to kill me, or control me for the rest of my life. Let's do it, I replied. Are you sure? Once you're legally dead, there's no going back. You'd lose everything. Your career, your friends, your entire identity. I've already lost my family. Everything else can be replaced. What about your job, your colleagues? They'll remember me as someone who died too young. That's better than living as someone who was never really alive. Dr. Laurent spent the next hour laying out the information. He would chronicle a dramatic decline in my condition that necessitated immediate life support. My family would be consulted before deciding whether to continue care. When they decided to let me die, he would document my death and arrange for my body to be sent to a specific funeral house with ties to witness protection agencies. This will end my career if we're caught, he told us. The medical board would revoke my license. I could face criminal charges. Why are you willing to risk it? Because I've seen what families like yours do to survivors. Because I took an oath to do no harm, and letting them kill you would violate that oath. And because sometimes the system fails people who deserve better. What do you need from me? Complete trust. When the time comes, you'll need to stop breathing on your own. You'll need to let the machines show cardiac arrest while staying conscious enough to hear what they say. How long will I need to hold my breath? Not long. Maybe 30 seconds, but it has to be convincing. What if something goes wrong? Then we improvise, but I'll be monitoring everything. I won't let anything happen to you. 2 days later, Dr. Laurent contacted my family with serious news. I had taken a dramatic turn for the worst. My brain swelling had gotten so bad that I needed emergency intubation to keep my airway open. They needed to arrive immediately. When they arrived, I was hooked up to a ventilator, heavily sedated according to my file, but completely cognizant. Dr. Laurent had thoroughly instructed me on the process, including how to sit perfectly still, let the machine breathe for me, and remain unresponsive to stimuli. "What happened?" Mom inquired, her voice carefully controlled with enthusiasm. "The brain swelling increased suddenly overnight," Dr. Laurent stated solemnly. "We had to intubate to protect her airway. She's in a medically induced coma now." "What's the prognosis?" Leon inquired, attempting to appear concerned but unable to conceal his excitement. "Guarded. The increased pressure has affected vital brain structures. Even if we can reduce the swelling, there may be permanent damage." "What kind of damage?" Mom asked. "Cognitive impairment, personality changes, loss of motor function. She might never be the same person she was." I could almost hear their relief. "What are our options?" Leon inquired. "We can continue aggressive treatment and hope the swelling responds to medication. Or..." Dr. Laurent hesitated. "Or what?" Mom asked hopefully. "Given her prognosis and the likelihood of severe impairment, some families choose to withdraw life support and allow natural death to occur." "Is that what you'd recommend?" Leon inquired. "I can't make that decision for you. I can only provide information about her likely outcomes and respect whatever choice you make as her family." They asked to speak privately. Through my closed eyelashes, I could hear them huddled at the window, whispering urgently about my situation. "Doctor," Mom remarked finally as she returned to my bedside. "We've made our decision, and that is, we want to withdraw life support. It's what she would want. She always said she wouldn't want to live if she couldn't be independent." I'd never said such a thing, but I wasn't surprised they'd fabricate a discourse to justify their decision. "She wouldn't want to be a burden," Leon explained. "This is the merciful thing to do." Merciful. Murdering me was humane. "Are you certain?" Dr. Laurent inquired. "This decision is irreversible." "We're certain," Leon stated firmly. "When can we proceed?" "I'll need to complete some paperwork, notify the ethics committee and allow time for any family members who want to say goodbye. Tomorrow morning, we can begin the process." Dr. Laurent came to check on me after the nighttime shift change. "Are you ready for this?" he asked quietly, looking to make sure no one was in the corridor. I squeezed his hand, the first voluntary movement I had made in days. "Tomorrow, when they withdraw the ventilator, you'll need to stop breathing on your own for about 30 seconds. I'll document cardiac arrest, then begin resuscitation efforts that will fail. From there, you'll be transferred to the morgue and then to our contact at the funeral home." "What about my records here?" "They'll show that you died from complications following withdrawal of life support. Cause of death will be listed as natural, brain death following traumatic injury." "And if they want an autopsy?" "They won't. Your family has already indicated they want immediate cremation with minimal ceremony." Of course they did. The faster I vanished, the sooner they could collect the insurance money and get on with their lives. "One more thing," Dr. Laurent explained. "I've contacted someone who specializes in helping abuse survivors disappear. She'll be waiting at the funeral home to begin the process of creating your new identity." "What's her name?" "Agent Patricia Wolf, FBI. She's been tracking your uncle's case and knows about your family's reaction to your testimony." The FBI was involved. This was about more than my family's greed. It was part of a larger study into how abuse survivors were silenced by their families. The next morning, my entire extended family gathered to mourn my demise. Aunts, uncles and cousins who hadn't talked to me in years, unexpectedly appeared to see my final moments. They gathered around my bed like mourners at a wake, their features meticulously set in looks of anguish that never reached their eyes. Dr. Laurent explained the operation in a professional manner. When life support was removed, my body would either resume spontaneous breathing or lose cardiovascular function. There was no way to foretell what would happen. "Before we begin," Mom explained, "we'd like to say our goodbyes." They approached my bed one by one, offering false farewells. "We love you. Rest in peace. You'll finally have the peace you've been seeking." Uncle Paul leaned very close and murmured, "Maybe now Victor can finally forgive you." Aunt Dolores grabbed my hand and whispered, "We know you're sorry for what you did to our family." My father kissed my forehead and said, "I hope you find whatever you were looking for." Leon was last. He grabbed my hand and stated loudly enough for everyone to hear, We're sorry it had to end this way, but we know this is what you'd want. To be free from the pain you've been carrying. What I'd like. They were killing me for my own benefit. Dr. Laurent inquired. Are you ready to proceed? We're ready, Mom stated without hesitation. Dr. Laurent started the procedure of disconnecting life support. First, he stopped the IV drugs that were intended to keep me drowsy. He then withdrew the feeding tube. Finally, he started preparing to extubate me. Once I remove the breathing tube, we'll know quickly whether she can breathe on her own, he told me. And what if she can't? Leon inquired. Then we'll make her as comfortable as possible while nature takes its course. The breathing tube was withdrawn. This was my moment. I forced myself to remain perfectly motionless, not taking a single breath despite every instinct screaming at me to do so. She's not breathing on her own, Dr. Laurent declared, looking at the monitors that displayed the predefined patterns we had set up around me. I heard soft sighs of relief disguised as anguish. Sighs, shuffling feet, hushed conversations about how calm I appeared. Heart rate is dropping, Dr. Laurent replied, carefully playing his part. Is she in pain? Mom said, her voice betraying no genuine concern. No. She's completely unconscious. This is peaceful. How long will it take? Leon inquired. Not long now? Her heart rate is becoming irregular. I lay there holding my breath and counting seconds in my thoughts. 30 seconds felt like 30 years, but I forced myself to stay still. I'm losing cardiac rhythm, Dr. Laurent explained. I'm going to call it. He followed the proper procedures, noting the moment of death, documenting the cause, and outlining the following steps to my family. We'd like to arrange for cremation as soon as possible, Leon stated instantly. She wouldn't want a big funeral. She was always private about these things. Private. They wanted me burned as soon as possible to avoid detection. I understand, Dr. Laurent replied. I'll have her body transferred to Morrison Funeral Home. They can handle all the arrangements discreetly. Morrison Funeral Home was the location Dr. Laurent had chosen to facilitate my disappearance. For the next hour, I lay motionless as my family debated funeral arrangements around my body. They organized a short memorial ceremony, selected the cheapest cremation package, and wrote a brief obituary that focused more on their sadness than my life. The life insurance company will need a death certificate, Leon informed Dr. Laurent. I'll have that filed within 24 hours, he stated professionally. When they eventually went to make preparations, Dr. Laurent waited another hour before approaching my bed. They're gone, he muttered. You can breathe now. I gasped, inhaling air that tasted of both freedom and dread. How do you feel? Like a ghost, I muttered, my voice raspy with the struggle to remain silent. How does this work now? In about an hour the funeral home will send a hearse. You'll be transferred in a body bag to their facility, where you'll meet Agent Wolf and begin the process of becoming someone new. What about you? Won't they investigate when they realize the death certificate was falsified? The beauty of this plan is that technically I never falsified anything. You did stop breathing, your heart did stop, and you were pronounced dead based on the observable evidence. If questions arise later, I'll say there was a communication error about the timing of your recovery. That seems like a thin defense. It's better than the alternative, and Agent Wolf assures me your family's actions are already under federal investigation. Once that becomes public, any questions about your death will be overshadowed by the criminal charges they'll be facing. They're really going to be arrested? Insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, abuse of medical power of attorney. The FBI has been building a case since they filed that insurance claim, before you were even declared dead. An hour later, I was taken from the hospital in a body bag, placed into a hearse, and driven to Morrison Funeral Home. The irony was not lost on me. I was being reborn in a location meant for endings. At the funeral home, I was taken to a secure area and met Agent Patricia Wolf. She was younger than I had anticipated, with friendly eyes and a forceful handshake that quickly put me at ease. Dr. Laurent contacted us about your situation, she explained. We've been investigating your family's activities since they filed the insurance claim. They filed it before I was actually dead. Leon submitted the paperwork and supporting documentation the same day they made the decision to withdraw life support. That's insurance fraud, conspiracy, and attempted murder. What happens now? Now we build a case while keeping you safe. Your family believes you're dead, which gives us time to gather evidence and prepare for prosecution. Agent Wolf said that I would be placed under federal witness protection while their investigation was concluded. I'd be given a new identity, replete with a social security number, birth certificate, and medical certificates proving my recovery from a previous accident in a different state. What about my life here? My job, my friends? They'll mourn your loss and remember you fondly. It's not ideal, but it's safer than the alternative. For the following 6 months, I lived in a safe house in Colorado, collaborating with federal prosecutors to develop the case against my family members. I testified before grand juries, providing detailed accounts of their conversations and plans, and contributing to the timeline of their conspiracy. The FBI had also been recording their phone calls and tracking their financial transactions. Leon had spent hours researching the insurance claim process before my injury. Mom had spoken with financial advisors about investing a substantial quantity of money. They'd even met with travel agents about the European vacation they'd discussed. They had planned to profit from my death before I was even injured. When the arrests were made, the case received national media attention. Family plots. Daughter's death for insurance funds. Abuse survivor outwits murderous relatives. The woman who had to die to live. Leon received an 18-year sentence for conspiracy to commit murder and insurance fraud. Mom received 15 years. The other family members who took part received penalties ranging from 5 to 10 years. Depending on their level of involvement. Uncle Victor's parole was denied again, with my case cited as proof of his persistent danger to family members and the long-term consequences of his acts. Dr. Laurent was investigated by the medical board, but ultimately cleared of all accusations. The board determined that his actions were justified given the credible threat to patient safety, and he was praised for his bravery in defending a vulnerable patient. 2 years after my death, I testified at Uncle Victor's third parole hearing via secure video link. The parole board was provided evidence of my family's conspiracy and my ongoing need for government protection. His parole was denied for an additional 5 years. I now live in Oregon under the legal name Sage Miller and work as a paramedic in a rural county where my abilities are much needed. I've completed more training under my new name and obtained qualifications that will allow me to work as a flight medic with the region's helicopter rescue service. My new colleagues recognize me as someone who moved from Colorado following a tough divorce. They are unaware of my past, but they know that I am a fierce advocate for patients, particularly those who are vulnerable or voiceless. The work is difficult, yet rewarding. Every life I save feels like proof that I made the correct decision, that survival was worth the sacrifice of everything I left behind. Sometimes I receive letters relayed through the FBI from distant relatives who claim they had always sensed something was wrong and want to reconnect now that the truth has been revealed. Some people apologize for their involvement in ostracizing me. Others claim they were duped by their family members who are now in prison. I read these letters carefully before filing them away unanswered, because the most essential lesson I learned in that hospital bed was that blood and DNA do not define family. It is characterized by the individuals who show up when you need them, believe you when you disclose unpleasant facts, and protect you even if it means giving up something valuable. Dr. Laurent continues to communicate with me through secure channels, updating me on his ongoing work with abuse survivors, and the methods he has devised for identifying families who pose a threat to vulnerable patients. Agent Wolf has become a true friend, understanding the complexities of survivor guilt and the constant task of forging a new identity while processing old pain. My new EMT partner, Quinn, is unaware of my past, yet has become the kind of friend I never had growing up. Someone who prioritizes honesty, courage, and real kindness over social standing or family reputation. Last year, I helped save a teenage girl who had been sexually molested by her stepfather. When her family tried to get her to retract her comments in order to keep it in the family and prevent scandal, I ensured she had supporters who believed her. I made certain she had what I had never had: parents who put her safety ahead of their own comfort. The most difficult aspect of my new life is not the solitude, the false identity, or even the realization that I will never be able to return to who I once was. It acknowledges that the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally were willing to kill me for money and convenience. But that tragic fact resulted in an unexpected gift: the absolute knowledge that I am stronger than I ever imagined. Strong enough to fake my own death, outwit those who thought I was powerless, and reconstruct my entire life from scratch. Strong enough to rescue others. Every emergency call I attend to, every patient I help stabilize, and every family I console in their worst moments demonstrates that sometimes the best retribution against those who have tried to destroy you is just refusing to be destroyed. My family believed they were eliminating a problem. Instead, they developed someone truly unstoppable, someone who discovered that the most powerful thing you can do, when others want you gone, is to control how you vanish, and when you return. Even if returning requires them to reinvent themselves, the woman they attempted to murder is no longer alive. But the woman who replaced her is everything they didn't expect, someone who had nothing to lose and everything to fight for, someone who found that sometimes you have to give up everything to find out who you truly are. And sometimes the person you truly are is worth dying for. Someone is worth living for. Someone worthy of becoming.